Well, good morning, everybody. David McLeod here from San Francisco Bay Area, speaker, coach, and facilitator, and welcome to episode 18 of Life Matters TV, two words that will change your life. And of course, as you recall, last week Tommy was away. He was off on a world tour riding his bicycle over some mountains or something, and I think he's back, but I think he's still pretty sweaty, so I think he can check in and tell us what that was all about. Anyway, welcome, Tommy. Good to see you back.
Thanks, David. Yeah, the sweat stopped dripping a little while ago. And while I would like to take credit for riding my bicycle through the mountains, and I've done that before, I was actually pushing a different kind of pedal on my Jeep. So I was doing some gnarly off-road vehicle driving on the Rubicon Trail near Lake Tahoe in California. Had an amazing experience, met some fantastic people. One woman has been four-wheeling since 1968. She's got this really old, like, Jeep. If you think of an old Jeep Willys, that's what she's driving. And she said to me, she goes, "Tom, do you know why I love doing this?" And I said, why? She goes, "Because focusing on these rocks and hanging onto the steering wheel and paying attention to everything that's going on just quiets my mind and brings me right into the moment."
Wow.
And I said, "Brilliant, Margaret. That's why I'm here too." And we talked about that around the campfire, that things that we really enjoy doing, that we have a passion about, I bet there's an element of present moment focus and awareness. There's nowness in that activity when you do it. So think about that one as you do stuff that you enjoy doing. So today, two words that will change your life. The words are, David said I couldn't tell you yet. But let's talk about the two words that were in the intro, limiting beliefs. So let's talk a little bit about limiting beliefs, because we know, I say limiting beliefs, and everyone's like, "Oh, yeah, those things." Well, let's look at limiting beliefs and what they are, what they aren't. Let's tear it apart a bit the way we do here, and hopefully free ourselves from some of that "oh no" and some of that weight. So, David, why don't you kick us off and start talking about what you meant by limiting beliefs?
Limiting beliefs. Oh my God. Aren't all beliefs limiting beliefs in a way? I mean, really, the moment I believe something, I kind of put myself in the mindset that what I don't believe can't possibly be true. So I create this. I create this weird dynamic in myself that, puts a box around how I perceive my life. So in a sense, even the beliefs that serve me are, in a way, limiting beliefs. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Boy, okay. Like usual, we'll just dive right into the deep end of the pool here, because because the very esoteric teachings on enlightenment talk about that any beliefs, right, kind of create our identity, our sense of self, and some people call it a false sense of self or a false sense of authorship, our ego. So yeah, David, if we're having beliefs of any kind, we're limiting our capacity and our ability just to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that doesn't mean to say that beliefs aren't useful, whether they're limiting or not. I mean, for example, I think it's a pretty useful belief that if I leap out in front of a bus that's traveling at 50 miles an hour down the road and it hits me, I'm probably not going to fare too well. It's a pretty reasonable thing for me to avoid that kind of behavior. And so some beliefs, even though I think it's still a limiting belief in some way, it has its value, it has its purpose, and it helps me and it serves me and it makes it possible for me to live in this world.
Yeah, absolutely right, man. We've got brains between our ears, so we're meant to use them. In those brains are thoughts and ideas and beliefs. So yeah, it's part of our makeup. It's part of our mental makeup and what we're here to live with.
Right.
I think you very nicely in the intro email too. We put in there some ideas about desires, right? Of what it's like when we don't have limiting beliefs, or what it's like when we're kind of in the flow or in the moment and causing all that jaggedy noise in our head. And you wrote three things, and I'm going to read them to you. And I'm going to challenge people that these aren't just desires, but these are truths. I hear a lot of people talking about human nature, and most of the crap that they come out of their mouth when they classify it as human nature is just crap. It's bullshit. It's lie. Our human nature is to be present and to be aware and to be unlimited and to be, in power. And so some of the things you wrote here are just fantastic. One of them is I have unlimited capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to read three and then we can just talk about it. I can do whatever I set my mind to. And I put in there, I can do whatever I set my mind and my heart to.
Sure.
Which you nicely talked about in line number 3 here. I can have whatever my heart truly desires. So you set a stage there, David, for trashing those limiting beliefs and just being unlimited and being present, being a human being.
Right. And I think it's important that, we do acknowledge that all of us have limiting beliefs. And I know the things that you're talking about are not the way I was talking about it, not the sense that every belief is a limiting belief, but I think what you had in mind was more along the lines of these quiet, unconscious beliefs that we have in our minds that talk to us and say, you better not do that, because if you do that, Joe isn't going to like you, or this person's not going to love you, or something bad is going to happen, or whatever. And so you tend to hold back yourself rather than risk hurting someone else's feelings. That's kind of what we're talking about here with limiting beliefs.
Yeah, absolutely. So what those 3 lines were in the email were what life is like without limiting beliefs. But let's dig into what limiting beliefs are. Let's talk about what they look like, what they smell like, what they feel like, because we all have them and they come in different shapes and sizes and forms. And I think bringing that into our awareness will really help, because people will resonate and say, oh yeah, I got one of those. And one in the discussion as to how to start getting rid of some of those things. So how, just David, how do limiting beliefs show up in your, like you said, in our thoughts? How is one way that they pop up in you?
So sometimes I will notice if there's, let's say there's something I'm wanting to do, and I can feel my heart really wants to do it. It feels something that's in alignment with my spirit and my purpose in life, and yet there's a part of me that is, I'm feeling that fear in my gut. I'm feeling that I don't know how to describe it. It's kind of a cold tension that shows up in my belly, and then with that comes this thing, oh, you better hold back, you better not step into that, this or that is going to happen or whatever. And it's such a quiet, subtle thing that I don't always notice the chatter in my head. I just feel myself pulling back. And so I'm not stepping into what I think my heart truly desires, or what really does feel in alignment with my true self. And so I tend to hold myself back as a result.
Yeah, and everything you just said there, I feel it too, and I go through the same stuff. And I want to bring everyone's attention to what you were doing and how you were saying things. You were saying, when my heart is into something, that's where the passion comes from. And for me, when my heart says yes, that's when I know there's truth there. That's when I know that's a real desire or a real something that I need to to go after. You did this with your hands. And I do that too. It's our head, right? It's our thoughts that's where the limiting beliefs are. I don't have limiting beliefs in my heart. The limiting beliefs are between my ears here. And it comes in different shapes and sizes and forms, but just let's distinguish that what we feel in our heart is the truth, and what we think in our head is where the limiting beliefs reside. Even if those limiting beliefs are strong enough to create an uneasy feeling in my stomach, that's not intuition. When that's where we get a little fuzzy, right? How to distinguish intuition from fears and thought-based stuff. But you described it really nicely, and you were doing this visual. I was watching your hands, the corner of my eye, and I'm like, yeah, that's where it is. So we have to just focus attention.
That's right.
Limiting beliefs are up here. You know what's cool? This thing between our ears is a tool. It's like a computer, and if it's a tool, then we can take charge of it and fix it. And I've always found that to be an amazing truth that I just love.
Right, absolutely. Well, one of the things that I believe is that, and this may or may not be a limiting belief, is every thought, word, action, or feeling that I have is an expression to the universe of who I am choosing to be in this moment. And so I know that you had this idea that the two words I was talking about was limiting beliefs. But for me, really, it's much deeper and much more important than that. The two most powerful words, I think, in the universe, at least in English, are I am. And every time I allow myself to be held back from something that is in my heart by some limiting belief that's up here, what I'm declaring to the universe is a kind of, I'm declaring unconsciously a way that I am showing up. And that is, I'm saying something like, I am not good enough, or I am incapable, or I am missing the necessary skills to do what I need to do. I am creating that story in the universe without necessarily using those words. So what I'm effectively doing by caving into my limiting beliefs is I am accepting the limitation, and I am choosing to be small.
Yes, I'm gonna latch on that word choosing, right? Because choosing implies conscious choice and free will, and so if our mind is conditioned, think about our minds as a computer, right? And over time, over life, we pick up other people's beliefs, we pick up other people's opinions, we pick up all this stuff that I'm not good enough, belittling beliefs, we pick up fears, we pick up doubts, we pick up all this chatter, and then we take it and we think it's our own, we make it our identity, and we think it's us, and it runs in the background like a computer program running in the background, and then when we're in a situation and we're making a decision to do something big or to do something different or to follow our heart, what happens? That computer program kicks in and goes, whoa, wait a second, stop. Oh, you're not good enough. Oh, it's going to scare you. Oh, you're going to fall off a cliff. Oh, you're going to get hit by a bus. And bam! And you said the word cave-in. And I use the word cave-in all the time. That our mind is like it's a cave-in, right? All those thoughts come. You have this intuition, you have this belief, you have this thing that you want to do, you're all excited about it in the heart, and then all of a sudden, bam, there's this cave-in on you. All these thoughts just crumble, all these rocks just bury that belief and bury that desire. So I loved your use of the word cave-in there, and I don't know that it's a choice until you start to unbury those rocks and you start to clear the rubble. Then, as you become more aware and you clear the crap, it does become a choice at that point. But until then, and the brain's running, that you got viruses in there that are automatically making up decisions and screwing things up. That's part of the limiting beliefs.
Yeah, I get your point, and on some level I agree. But I also think that not all choice needs to be conscious. I think that there are plenty of ways that I choose things without really thinking about it. I choose out of habit. I choose on autopilot. You know, when I'm driving my car, for example, I'm not necessarily always aware of every single detail that's going on with me. I know that I'm going from here to there. I see a vehicle coming up, and I'm going to go around it. I'm going to do this. I mean, I'm not even consciously aware of those choices because I have taught myself how to do things on autopilot. And a lot of what we do, a great deal of what we do, goes into our unconscious or our subconscious, and it's just a program that we've said, okay, I've set up this program, it does the work for me, and now I don't have to think about it anymore. And sometimes those choices have negative impacts. They have impacts that I don't really want. And so that's when I have to bring it back into consciousness, and I have to start looking at it, and I have to start deciding, is this really how I want to be living my life? I may have to go back in and delete the program or modify it or change it or something, or just start bringing everything into my consciousness, which I think would make life pretty difficult if everything had to be in consciousness.
Well, if you say that bringing everything into consciousness, to me, I can translate that into being present, being in the moment. And not every situation has to be in the present, in the moment, although that would be a nice practice to get to. But I totally get it. You get in the car, you're on autopilot to get to work, but that's not like a decision-making process that's going to get sideswiped by the fears and the limiting beliefs and the belittling thoughts. So we're kind of talking about those bigger, I don't know if it's life-changing but those decisions where I'm either in the flow or I'm getting knocked out of the flow. And getting knocked out of the flow, you know, those limiting beliefs and everything, are things that we can address. You address them in your courses. You know, you explained to me how you do work, your shadow work. That, you know, shadow stuff is all thought stuff that, you know, limiting beliefs. The chatter relaxer, the course I teach, I'm changing the name, I think, to lighten up, to something a little different. But basically, same thing, right? Get into the root cause. And you said it nicely. You're in a situation, you're making a decision, and something doesn't feel quite right. What do we say? We grab that, you know, we catch that little rascal, and now what do we do with it, right? How do we shift that limiting belief? How do we catch it and change it? So now we're being in authenticity. Now we're being who I am, and not what my brain says I can't be.
Right. Well, I think there's even a bigger picture on this. And coming back to these two words, I am, what if I consciously make statements about who I am? And I put those out to the universe. If I am very careful about my wording, and I put it into the present tense, and I say, this is how I am, this is who I am, this is what I am right now, and just push it out there. And then the universe has no choice but to accept it and reflect it back. So I think it's really, really important that we bring the I am into consciousness. It's not so much about whether I happen to be driving a certain way or doing something on autopilot. I think that is a statement of who I am. It says I am capable enough that I can put this on autopilot and bang, I can focus my attention on other things while I'm doing that. But if I am choosing to be a bigger person, if I am choosing to live my life more fully, then I need to acknowledge those things when they show up in my gut and in my head and start just questioning, is that really who I am? Is that who I am? And if it is, great, carry on. If it's not, then make an adjustment. That's really what I think it boils down to.
I 100% agree. We're yep, right on board. And I'm gonna play with the driving thing again, because I'm gonna admit shamefully that I used to be a road rager. I'm the best fucking driver there is out there, and I can teach everyone else how to drive well. And that's what I used to do.
But you can't teach me because I'm a better driver than you.
And I used to get to all. So at that point, that's who I was. I am a great freaking driver, and I'm a great driving instructor behind my own wheel on the highway. And that's who I am, right, at that point in time. And I caught myself, and I said, is that who I want to be? Right? What you said, you catch it. And you say, is that who I really am? And I said, no, I'm not. And I quit that day. I just quit that addiction. I quit that habit. Just like that. Just by becoming aware of it. I caught it. I caught that little rascal, and I said, I'm not that anymore. And today, what I am on the highway, I am invisible. Mm. I drive such that I'm not bothering anybody. Nobody even feels my presence on the road. That's my goal, that I'm invisible on the road. And so that's who I am now. So that's just like that, right? You catch it, drop it, move on.
Yeah. That sounds like a great practice, don't you think? Just catch it, drop it, move on. Catch it, drop it, move on. I mean, it sounds like dysfunctional football. Sorry, man, I had to make a joke there.
Sorry, go ahead.
I just said I had to make a joke there.
No, that's great. Catch it, drop it, move on.
Yeah.
That is a great practice, and that's the exercise then for today. We're there. We just made it up as we go. Because, you know, at the core of what we're talking about, limiting beliefs, right? Garbage in, garbage out. Okay. Right? If we've picked up all these limiting beliefs over time, and we all do, right? We all have the not good enoughs, the not smart enoughs, the not pretty enoughs, all this comparison crap we do, all this, you know, fears we pick up along the way from whether it's TV, Fear News Network, whatever. All those limiting beliefs are there. And as long as we're taking that stuff into our computer, right? Input, computer, output, garbage in, garbage out. So that's what we do, you know, catch it. catch the garbage coming in, catch how I am.
Uh-oh. You still there? Okay, I'm not sure what happened, but Tommy's video feed has frozen for some reason. I don't know what's going on there. And hope I haven't lost him. But I'm going to just take over here and talk about the whole garbage in, garbage out thing, and that's absolutely true for me. And garbage coming in through TV and various other sources, really, that is something that I think all of us could afford to drop and let go of. I haven't seen anything decent on TV in years. It all seems to be fear-mongering. It all seems to be shows that don't really have any substance to them. I quit watching TV for that reason. Now maybe today things have changed. I don't know, but that's been my experience. So that would be a practice that we can all do for the coming week, and that is to catch it, drop it, and move on. So how does that look? How does that look? How do you catch something? How do you catch it in the first place? Well, I can speak for myself. One of the ways that I catch it is to notice that feeling in my stomach. I notice that sense of coldness, that sense of tension, that sense of pulling back. That's the first thing I notice. Once I have that, then I can start to look at what is it that's causing that, and then check in with my thoughts. I can then notice, oh yeah, I have this belief that if I do this thing, then something bad is going to happen. This bad thing is going to happen. And now I can ask myself, as Chris Kyle suggested and taught us in episode, I think it was episode 15, is that true? Is it true? Is it really true that I am not good enough? Is it really true that something bad is going to happen to me? I see Tommy's back on. I'm going to let him get back into the conversation here. So I was just basically putting a two-step process here, or three-step process here together. And so the first step is to catch it, and then when we catch it, what do we do with it? And I'm just saying, we ask the question, is that true?
No. Yeah, that's brilliant. Hear me okay?
Yeah, I can see you, but your video is kind of breaking up a little bit here.
Having network connectivity all day here. My service provider, I may be changing.
Yeah.
Hear me, if something again, just tell me. But if is that, and right at the beginning, we talked about the truth that we beliefs.
Yeah, it's breaking up really badly here, Tommy, so I'm just going to have to take over, I'm afraid. I'm sorry. If you maybe try and reboot your modem or something and then come back on, we should be able to finish up. But the idea, you're absolutely right. We talked early on about the whole limiting belief thing and trying to catch that and then immediately dive in and ask, is that really true? The thing is, it may have seemed true because when we were little kids, way back when, sometimes those bad things did happen, and sometimes other adults in our lives did cause pain for us. Sometimes other people in our lives caused pain for us. So we learned how to protect ourselves and step back from what appeared to be some kind of a painful situation in order to protect ourselves. And oh, I see you're back in again.
I'm just changing cameras to see if this one takes up less bandwidth.
Well, that seems to be better, actually. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, just keep going. But I lost you, man. You disappeared.
I'm taking my dirty laundry off the door hanger, so we're live, man. We're adjusting. You can see my ceiling vent now behind me. It's all good.
That's all right. Don't worry about it.
So, yeah, David, you're speaking the truth, right? Find the root cause of the problems, whether they're, and that's what I do too. I sometimes use the weed. I'm gonna have to classify that one. I use the weed analogy about a growing weed, like a weed in your garden.
Right.
And whatever limiting belief, call that a weed, or maybe that's a leaf on the weed. And when you look back, like you said, to somewhere, if you have a big limiting belief, if you have some giant fear, if you have something that just keeps you keep hitting the wall on it again and again, go back and look for the root cause. Go back to the root of where that weed started. And when you find it, you address it.
Yeah.
And you address it, is that true?
Yeah. Is it true today? It may have been true then. You know, as I said, it may have been true that it really was dangerous for you to do something back then. But you're an adult now. So
Yeah.
is it true today?
Yeah. So it may have been true then. You're an adult now. Something else that popped in are another two words. You know, I am. But another word that keeps popping into my head, two words are free will.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Right? And just to really ponder what that means, that we are, as human beings, creative beings. We are creators ourselves. We have thoughts that can create things, and when we combine those with our emotions, when we align and synchronize our thoughts and our emotions, the energy that we put forward creates stuff. It creates situations, it creates our life. And that's the benefit, the blessing, the thing we have as human beings on this planet is free will.
That's
and
right.
I have the free will to be who I am.
Exactly. Exactly.
To make those choices.
Yeah.
Bring that unconscious stuff into consciousness.
Yeah, I was going to say this is really important because, so we've talked about, first off, catching it, and then doing a little bit of root cause analysis to understand where it came from, and then asking the question, is it true now? And now the really important piece is, how do you drop it? How do you drop it? You can't, sometimes it's not possible to simply drop it. I think the first thing that I have to do before I drop it is to accept it for what it is. And say, so this is a belief that I have now, and as I accept it, I can create an energy of forgiveness. I can forgive myself for having taken on that belief way back when I was a little boy, when it made sense, and I can just honor myself. You know, you did a great job of protecting yourself and keeping yourself safe, and now we don't need that belief anymore. So let's together let it go. So I'm talking to my little boy when I'm doing that.
Yeah, and that's just, David, that's brilliant. And somebody showed me once different ways of letting things go, right? You can have something in your hand, and you can let it go this way.
Uh-huh.
Or you can have something in your hand, and you can let it go that way.
Uh-huh.
And there's different ways to let things go. Letting go is a tough one, and you brought in the key ingredient to letting go, and that's forgiveness. So important, and hopefully we'll get our friend Joanne Rodemund on our talk someday, and she's got a brilliant book called The Forgiveness Habit. But that's a key ingredient to letting go. Mm-hmm. And not only forgiving yourself, right? Well, it's forgiving the other, whatever happened, the situation, whatever happened, it happened, and letting it go. And I always come back to the quote, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do." Well, people, you know, when you're unconscious and your brain's going and you're making decisions and all that chatter's going on, you know, I have to forgive people who are stuck in their delusions of their head, even if it impacted me in a great way in my life. That's a key for me for forgiving people.
Well, I'd like to just paraphrase what you just said. It's not necessarily, I mean, I understand where the phrase came from. However, I think what's more important is something like, I forgive me, for I knew not what I did.
Brilliant. Yes. Absolutely.
Wow.
David, I would just like to let that one settle and go out on that. Let's talk about next week's show.
Yeah, that's great. So I've been working with a friend of mine, Lynn Rose, who runs a program called Launch You Now. It's all about helping people to really show up in a big way in their business and in their life. And she has graciously agreed to join us next week, and we're going to talk. The topic will be Play Your Best Game Ever. And Lynn is just a joy to be with. You guys are going to have an absolute blast with her. Tommy, I'm looking forward to it.
I am too. I know Lynn. I love Lynn. She's awesome, and so looking forward to having her on the show.
Yeah.
So one last thing, we've told you folks about, sent some emails out about the Life Matters Free for All coming up in 2 weeks, episode 20 on August 29th. Keep sending in your suggestions, your ideas, what you want to talk about, and we'll stick those in a fishbowl and play play it by ear as we go. So that's coming up in 2 weeks. That's all I have for today. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, and just to complete what Tommy was saying, put your suggestions in an email and then send them to lifematterstv@gmail.com. And we will get those, and we will, eliminate any duplicates, and we'll put them in the free-for-all fishbowl. I can't wait to see what that looks like, and have some fun with it. So it's going to be a 1-hour show on the 29th. Thank you all for joining us today. Bye, Tommy, and bye, everybody.
Bye, all.